Good evening. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, September 22nd. I'm Councillor Jennifer Miller, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. Councillor Quinn shares her regrets. Mayor Panko has arrived. I will start with the land acknowledgement, if you could pause and reflect. On September 22nd, 2025, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. and we have an agenda to approve, moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that the September 22nd, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve some minutes, moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that the minutes of the August 11th, 2025 and August 25th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meetings be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. We have no delegations this evening. I understand we have 2 directors' reports.
Yes, that is correct. And we can start with our Manager of Development Services, Mr. Grankin.
Thank you. Good evening. Just a couple quick updates on some major open houses that were held here in council chambers over the last couple of weeks. On Wednesday, September 10th, we held an open house for the new official plan and transportation master plan. We had 18 who signed the sign-in sheet, but I think there were probably a few more who came who didn't sign in. And it was a good mix of folks who were involved or knowledgeable about the development context in the town, and a lot of folks who didn't. Who heard about us and were just interested in what we had in mind. So there's some good conversation. Staff and our consultants from Dillon were there and kept pretty busy over the course of the 2 hours there. So we're looking for comments through this range of the consultation. We're looking for comments by September 24th, and those can of course be sent through me or through our website. On Thursday, September 18th, we held a open house for the Heritage Conservation District Plan. We had 18 sign in there as well, and a good representation of from the couple of realtors, some folks who had who own properties or are connected to properties, including churches in the downtown core, who were curious to see what the proposed HCD would mean for them. So again, staff and our consultants from Stantec were on hand to engage in those conversations, and it was a pretty good session. So these the OP and the HCD will be discussed respectively at the next Planning Advisory Committee and Municipal Heritage Committee meetings, and following that, staff will be bringing forward issues and options report to come to council on both reports. We're going to be looking for council's direction on some of the content from the feedback, and looking for how council wants to move forward on a couple of the aspects of the HCD as well as the official plan. So stay tuned later in October for more on both of those. That's my update for this evening.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to provide a brief update on the former water treatment plant project. There's some interest from perhaps around the Horseshoe and from the public about when that project's going to finish up. So the contractor is on site. The last remaining piece is to cap the remnants of the foundation. So there are large voids where the settling tanks were in particular. They're fairly deep. So you may recall Director Clark had provided an update. We switched gears. Instead of filling those voids, the basement basically with concrete, the top will be capped. So to cap it, they will be installing a corrugated metal plate and then pouring the concrete cap on top of the metal. The contractor experienced a supply chain issue with the metal. It's a little bit later than we had hoped. So they confirmed this morning they should be finished that project and out of there by the 6th of October. So what will remain is a concrete capped surface with a fencing, metal fencing surrounding the entirety of the former building for safety reasons. So we're excited to see that finish up. And at the same time, of course, we have work going on with the Confederation Bridge. I was fortunate to have a tour Friday morning, and very, very impressive structure. It's much bigger than the drawings that we've seen would indicate, and that's moving along very quickly. So there's a lot of activity down at that area of the waterfront right now, but we believe by late October, early November, that all construction activity will have finished up, and both contractors will be out of that area.
Councillor McGuire?
Thanks. It's good to hear the update on the water treatment plant. I'm wondering, for the fencing, is it temporary construction fencing or a more permanent solution? And what kind of, how is it going to fit in with the Rideau Canal?
Yeah, so through the chair, I can confirm it's not construction fencing. It'll be a metal railing, basically. I think I can confirm this, but I believe it'll be black in color to match the surroundings. So it'll be an appropriate and safe barrier from both the water side and the land side of the property.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McKenna?
Thank you. Again, on the fencing question, is there a deep hole where the foundation was? Is it to prevent people from falling in there or from falling in the water, or both?
The latter, through the chair. So the hole that exists right now will be capped.
Okay.
So it'll be a solid surface on top. So the railing is to prevent unauthorized entry onto the new pad, the top, as well as preventing, it's a fairly sharp drop on the water side. The remaining elevation of the foundation wall is several meters above the water level. So we want to protect anyone from falling into the water.
So is it impractical to put the fence on top of that foundation wall, let people go to the edge of the water to move the fence there? Is that not a practical?
Well, we at this point, until we decide the future of the property and perhaps any type of programming that might occur there until the property is redeveloped, it would be our desire, as well as our insurer's desire, to keep people off the remnants of the structure.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yep. Councillor
Yeah, so that's good update. So is there a date in the calendar to mark to watch the crane put the bridge in place?
Great question. At this point, no. Director McMahon could provide a better update, but we've had a slight delay in some of the structural work for the bridge. I think we've moved through it. We have an engineered solution to the problem we encountered. So it's tracking slightly behind, but the site manager on Friday confirmed by the end of October it'll be finished. And once they have the schedule for the deployment of the bridge, we'll share that with this council and the public.
You'll let us know. Yep. Thank you.
Good news. Thank you. And that's it for director's reports.
It is. Thank you.
Okay, priority issues and reports. We have 3. The first one is with Clerk Costello, and I understand we're welcoming our Integrity Commissioner, Tony Fleming. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and I'll pass it over to you. So this evening, Council has been given the Integrity Commissioner's report that was received in our office on September the 11th. The applicant wanted to remain anonymous, hence why they went directly to IC Fleming. We received the application July 2nd. And it is alleged that a member of council had not declared a conflict of interest and voted on a matter that they had an interest in. So IC Fleming will discuss the actual contents of the report as well as his recommendation. I will remind council that regardless of any sanctions that you may or may not impose under the legislation, we do have to receive the report via resolution. And as well, we have to ensure that the report is made public on our website for a minimum of 5 years. As well as the member is not present this evening, I will remind council that the member does have a right to speak to any sanctions that are imposed if she so chooses. Since she's not here this evening, that can be done October 6th if she so chooses to speak on those. So that this evening we can listen to IC Fleming answer or ask any questions we may have of him. However, defer a decision until that member is present. Tony, I'll pass over to you if you'd like to speak to the actual contents of the report.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So council has the report. My practice is to give a high-level overview of the findings and the recommendation, and then obviously answer questions from council about the recommended penalty. So this is a investigation respecting Councillor Quinn. The allegation was that on the 3rd of March of this year, there was a funding for community grant applications that came before both committee and council on the same evening. There was a recommendation at that time that Davidson Courtyard Shops receive funding in the amount of $4,665. That was to assist with bringing in live music on Monday evenings, June through October. That was approved by committee and council. At that meeting, Councillor Quinn voted in favor of awarding that grant. And the allegation was that Councillor Quinn has a retail shop in the Davidson Courtyard, and therefore there was a conflict of interest. After our investigation, we confirmed that the member does have a shop in the Davidson Courtyard, and she is a member of the group that's known as the Davidson Courtyard Shops. What we understand from our investigation as this is I'll call it a loose association of shop owners. It's not an incorporated entity. There's no, what I was advised, no formal membership or no membership fee to participate in the group. We were advised by the member that on Monday nights, her shop is not open. I believe she attends council on Monday nights, so she just doesn't open, whether or not council is open for business or not, she's not open for business. She was aware that the grant provided by the town didn't cover the whole cost of the proposed events. This is the music nights. We asked the question of the member who made up the shortfall. She wasn't aware of how that shortfall was made up, but she confirmed that it was not made up by her. So we looked at two different aspects of this. First, we looked under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. It wasn't a personal interest to the member, but it was possibly an indirect member or indirect benefit to the member. But the way that would happen under the act would be whether or not the group, whether it was incorporated or not, was benefiting. Although there was a group, the Davidson Courtyard Shop group, and they did benefit, it was a very informal group, and it was difficult for us to come to a decision that the member was indirectly benefiting simply by virtue of her membership in that group. So on our investigation, or after our investigation rather, we found that under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, there was not a breach. The second area that we needed to consider was the code of conduct. And in section 16 of the code, it's excerpted in the report, you'll see what the test is. Effectively, the test is whether an objective, reasonable observer would conclude that the member was exercising their duties objectively and without undue influence. The other thing the code does direct us to do is to define or interpret the phrase conflict of interest broadly, and the objective there is to make impartial, objective decisions. So one of the sections of the code says that when making decisions, the members have to place the interests of the taxpayer and the municipality first, and in particular place those interests before the members' personal interests, as well as the interests of staff, friends, business colleagues, or family members. We find that the other shop owners in the Davidson courtyard would fall within the category of either friends and or business colleagues. And therefore, the member did have some obligations under the code with respect to conflict of interest. When we look at that and also interpret the code as we're directed in a broad way in terms of what is or is not a conflict, it was our finding that because of the member's affiliation with the Davidson Courtyard shops, that there was some indirect benefit or direct benefit to the other members of the Courtyard shops group. So it's clear in our view that in the code, the member needs to place the interests of the town before or friends and or business colleagues. And therefore, in that circumstance, we found that a reasonable person who understood all of those facts would find that that would be difficult for the member to be impartial when making that decision. And it would also be reasonable to assume that it would be difficult for the member to make an objective decision given her relationship with the other members of the Davidson Courtyard shop group. So with that, we found there was a breach of the code of conduct. And we're recommending that council suspend the remuneration of the member for a period of 2 weeks to reflect the breach and to send a message not only to the member, but also to the public that council is taking conflicts of interest seriously and imposing an appropriate or commensurate penalty. With that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to take questions from council.
Thank you, Tony. And just before we go to questions, Clerk Costello, can I clarify that we're simply to ask questions tonight and then we talk about the recommendation when Councillor Quinn is back?
Tony, please correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that council can discuss this tonight, ask anything they wish of Tony. You can discuss any type of reprimand that you wish to discuss tonight. However, Councillor Quinn must be given a chance to speak if she finds that what you're proposing is too stringent. So it can be discussed tonight, but she does have the opportunity to speak to it as well.
Thank you. On that note, questions?
No, I don't have a question, just a comment.
Okay.
I think that it would be appropriate for us to receive the report tonight and then discuss Tony's recommendations at a time when Councillor Quinn is present as well.
Thoughts? We won't have Tony back again next time. So I feel that it's probably an opportunity to ask questions while we have our expert in-house.
100%, yeah.
So if there are other questions. Okay. Councillor McGuire?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if there's a precedent from other municipalities if they impose sanctions, if there's a retraining component to that on the code of conduct, or if that's outside of the scope of what could be proposed.
Through you, Madam Chair, it varies from municipality to municipality, so it wouldn't automatically follow, for example, that if council imposed a financial penalty, that there would be a retraining requirement. I'd have to look at your code of conduct to see if you have have reserved to yourselves the right to impose that sort of additional sanction as part of what you're looking at with respect to the financial penalty. I know the financial penalty is obviously there, it's in the municipal act itself, but in order to do something like request the member take additional training, you would need to have that specifically provided for in the code. And I apologize, I just don't have the code in front of me right now, but I might be able to pull it up quickly if you just bear with me.
Sure. While you're looking for that, we'll go on to Mayor Panko.
Yeah, and not a question, just at the start of every term of council, we all go through a day of training, including deep review of our code of conduct, and we sign and confirm we will stick to our code of conduct. And those of us like Councillor Quinn who have been around for multiple terms have been through this training multiple times. So I'm willing to, I accept the report. I accept the recommendation, but I like, with respect to Councillor Brennan's comments, I guess I'll reserve any formal vote towards that until after Councillor Quinn's had an opportunity to speak, should she choose.
Thank you. And Councillor McKenna?
I'm just fine deferring this discussion to Councillor Quinn's present.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions for Mr. Fleming.
And Madam Chair, I do have the code in front of me now. It's section 61. It also says the Integrity Commissioner may also recommend council impose one of the following sanctions. And a subsection E says other sanctions that are reasonably connected to the breach of this code of conduct and which the Integrity Commissioner believes in his or her sole discretion are necessary to modify the behavior of the member. So I haven't made that recommendation, but that doesn't mean that council wouldn't have as an option available to it to amend my recommendation to add in that the member take additional training if council feels that that's an appropriate additional sanction.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Robinson?
No comments, just other than, no question, just a comment. I too would rather discuss this when Councillor Quinn is in the room. So I'm more than happy to accept the report.
Great. So what I'm hearing is we're receiving the report tonight. We look forward to Councillor Quinn returning and speaking on her behalf. And we have a recommendation from Mr. Fleming on that. Clerk Costello?
Thank you. Just to clarify, we'll formally accept the report at the October 6th council meeting, doing the two items that we discussed below, formally receiving the report, as well as making note that it'll be added to the town's website. Anything regarding a sanction would be a separate resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
You too. Okay, moving on to priority issue 9.2, the compost site update with Director McMahon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report I have in front of you this evening is with respect to the compost site, and this report is solely presented this evening for information for council. Last Tuesday evening, September 16th, I presented a director's report with basically the same context that's in this report. So having formalized my verbal presentation last week, formalize it in report for the folks at home. I do want to note that there is one administrative error in the report. So on page 3, it'd be the last paragraph before you get to budget financial implications. I noted that the town is required to sample and test surface water and groundwater monitoring network once per calendar year in July and submit an annual monitoring report to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks before November 30th of each year. So November 30th is wrong. It should read May 31st of the calendar year. So we do the testing prior to May, then we submit in May for next year and then the years going forward. So there is a fairly robust continuance of monitoring that we need to do to satisfy our environmental compliance approval that we just received. When did we receive that? Just very, very recently, within the last week or so. September 11th, I think was the date. Yeah, so we provided all the information to the MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and received our ECA. So with that, through the chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm going to break my tradition and ask you a question before I turn it over, because we're all getting a lot of questions about this topic, and I appreciate all of the detail. So just to sum it all up, is our drinking water safe in Smiths Falls?
Sorry, say again?
Is our drinking water safe in Smiths Falls?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. And so on that note, would you be willing to share all the reports and the recent, I know it's fresh off the press, the recent approval, can that be shared on our website so that people can read this?
Absolutely, yes. I just want to note that to this date, it wouldn't have been prudent for the town to post that information to our website, because as far as I'm concerned, that information was in draft until such time as it was submitted to the MECP for their review. So through the review, They've identified that the ECA is, we provided all the information that they required, and we now have an approved ECA for the site.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, yes, we can post all that information on the town's website.
Perfect. Councillor McKenna?
Thank you. And to say it again, we would not have received the ministry approval if we hadn't met all the requirements and have done everything we were supposed to do.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Direct. Oh, sorry, Mayor Panko.
Thanks, Director McMahon. Now, there were questions regarding a delineation study. And that was posted on the weekend on a number of community Facebook pages. And it was suggested, and there's some correspondence shared within the ministry, some emails went back and forth, I guess, that had been received, the Freedom of Information request. And it was suggested the town had not completed that. But can you speak to that? Because I guess all the studies were required by the ministry were completed, otherwise the ECA would not have been issued. So can you speak to what studies were completed that would be, I guess, comparable or would replace a delineation study, or how that works?
Right. Thank you for the question and through the chair. So the delineation study is essentially the hydrogeological assessment that we did for the site. So the town commissioned a hydrogeological expert, they're a professional engineer, to draft that report. So there's quite a bit of information in there in terms of the mapping and the delineation of where we tested the soil, where we installed groundwater monitoring wells for continuance of monitoring going forward. It noted in the mapping where we sampled surface water. So we did three things. We sampled surface water, we sampled the soil, some shallow test wells, to inform on where it would make sense from a delineation perspective around the site to install groundwater monitoring wells. So all that's been done. It all forms part of the hydrogeological report, and that's what we'll be posting to the website.
And how many wells were drilled?
9 in total, I believe. Yeah, it's in the report. I'm just not sure exactly where it is, but it's 8 or 9. Nice.
And we will work with the ministry to, as you mentioned earlier, I think to test those wells annually. Early in the year, I guess in March, I think it was, and then that information has to be provided to the ministry by May, end of May each year, as you've indicated.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks for your report and all the detail, and we look forward to seeing that on the website when you're able to do that. Great. Thank you. Moving along to priority item number 9.3 with Manager Grenke.
Good evening. Staff are proposing a number of housekeeping changes to the town's land sale bylaw as part of an ongoing process of policy review and modernization. So the land sale bylaw, we don't use it all that often, but it sets out council's expectations for the sale of any parcel of land and is scoped to cover the full range, including minor administrative lot adjustments, sale of road closures, and larger pieces that are intended for development. In general, the requirements are scoped depending on the size and nature of the proposal, but the bylaw sets out some broad principles of council's expectation, including value for the taxpayer and that the broader public interest be upheld in any decisions that we make. Ultimately, council does always have the final say on a real estate transaction and whether to sell a piece of land and under what conditions. However, the practice through the existing bylaw is to define these expectations in the public interest categories, and that is done for ease of reference as well as for transparency. So when it comes to the criteria for the sale of land, which is most relevant obviously to the larger land sales, the current bylaw prioritizes economic development criteria, including jobs and business feasibility. These are of course important today as they were in 1995. However, in recent years, there's been a greater awareness of the housing supply and affordability challenges within our community. And one of the recommendations that arose out of the Housing Task Force report was to amend the land sale bylaw to support the sale of land for residential development with a priority to affordable housing. And one of the proposed amendments to this bylaw would fulfill that recommendation. It's important to note that these criteria set out in the newly renumbered Section 9, which is attached to the report, are statements of intent. They're not ranking, and council will of course retain the authority to make a real estate decision in the broader interests of the community, including potential employment uses in places where residential development makes no sense. In terms of land use, the bylaw also proposes to discourage the sale of land that abuts a waterway if that land is publicly accessible or can be made publicly accessible. In keeping with the OPs and the strategic plan's broad acknowledgement of the waterfront as a cultural and economic milieu of the town, we propose to establish criteria relating to water sales as well. Again, that's not ironclad like the existing and proposed criteria. The public interest, of course, there is council has the ability to consider unique circumstances. For example, with a land sale abutting water, there could be a land swap or some sort of other criteria. So the bylaw also proposes a number of operational changes, all of which are tracked in the attachment to modernize public consultation and to correct some legislative references that no longer exist in the Municipal Act. This is a bylaw that's been around for many years, and legislation's also changed a little bit. So there's some housekeeping changes there. So the proposed changes broadly are in keeping with the principles, processes, and structure of the existing bylaw, but these are proposed to sort of convey updated intent and ease of reference. The proposed updates were relating to land use and purpose were reviewed with the town's management team, and the entire bylaw was reviewed by legal as it relates to legislative and statutory references. So I'll welcome committee's direction on the proposed land sale bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Grenke. Any comments, questions, concerns, thumbs up? We're good. Thank you, Manager Grenke. Appreciate that work. Okay. Yes? Okay. Do we have any committee, board, and external organizational updates? Seeing none. We do have a correspondence item from our friends at the Legion, and it's my understanding that one of their members will be here to speak mid-October. Would you have any questions or comments about that now, or do we defer that to the presentation? Mayor Panko?
Yeah, I guess the only question would be with what their intent is for the crosswalks. Are they looking for approval sooner, or is that work with their timelines to have them installed? Remember, say, I guess that'd be a question maybe for staff or.
Craig Costello, CAO Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure that there was an indication of timelines. Paul, do you recall in your correspondence with the Legion, were they looking at something to be done this season?
Yeah, it would be my understanding that they're looking for concurrence from council to proceed with the initiative to paint the Remembrance Day crosswalks in 2 locations in town.
This year?
For me?
This year?
This year, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Mayor Panko,
So
and then
I respect they're coming in October, but I have no problem giving them the go ahead at this stage if they want to start planning and preparing for it. And weather's always a factor, so I think we're very supportive of that initiative.
Did you want to add to that, Councillor McKenna?
Oh, no, I agree with that. I had a question regarding the street
Okay.
to help prepare them. Go ahead. Just Confederation Drive, did they just mean the small section beside the cenotaph, or do they mean the whole? So just on the east side of the bridge, the new bridge, or is it the whole? So if they could clarify that. Wasn't clear.
Yeah.
And Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, they could clarify that. I mean, I don't think that's that time sensitive, but the crosswalks themselves, if we want to have them running by November 11th, then I'd be happy to give them the go-ahead, and then Ken Manuel could come and show us what they're planning exactly for the crosswalks
Yeah.
when he presents. So
And
Get it
I'm
going.
seeing some nodding heads, some thumbs up. And clerk, oh, sorry, CAO Morris.
Thank you. So my only comment to committee at this point is we do have a public arts master plan policy. And at the time it was developed and written, we had received a number of requests for different animated crosswalks. Not the typical crosswalk or a rainbow crosswalk, but something else. So at that time, we embedded language in the policy that considers crosswalk art to be public art. It's in the public realm. So there are elements of guidance within that policy. So we could bring that back at the same meeting just to remind council of what it addresses in terms of installation costs and maintenance costs and those kind of operational considerations. So just I wanted to make you aware that we do have policy guidance around this type of request, and we'll provide that to you.
And just to jump in on that, CAO Morris, I'm just looking ahead to the calendar. We don't have a meeting next Monday. And just with Mayor Panko's comment about the weather and the timing, and Mr. Manuel's not coming to the middle of October, can this be added to a priority item at the beginning of October so that we have time to say a firm yes to the Legion?
Yeah, so looking at the clerk, I think we could do a special committee on the 6th, I think is the date. Or
We will be doing a special committee for the priority item A as well, so we can definitely add this.
right, for the first committee meeting in October.
How does that sound?
Great.
Fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So we'll add that to that meeting in early October. We are going to move in camera, so moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls, as provided in Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, move into a closed meeting at 5:37 p.m. to discuss a litigation matter. All in favor? We won't be too long, folks. Thank you.
to the driver.
Panko. Chair Miller.
Thank you. So the Risen report, we discussed a litigation matter and provided direction to council, and we also approved some meeting minutes. Do we have any notice of motions? Seeing none, we have a recommended motion for adjournment moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor Brennan that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:17 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
I guess,
Stay with me.